Ever wonder what the world was like before the SCP Foundation? Before secure, contain, protect became the mantra for dealing with the strange and unexplained. The truth is, anomalies have always been with us, long before we had a name for them. For thousands of years, humanity has brushed up against things that defy logic, things that whisper from the shadows of our reality. Imagine ancient civilizations stumbling upon these peculiarities: a statue that weeps blood, a forest where the trees rearrange themselves at night, a person who simply cannot die. Without the language of science or the concept of paranatural phenomena, how would they explain it? They did the only thing they could. They tried to fit it into their world. They called them gods, demons, miracles, or curses. Take the myths and legends we all know. A gorgon whose gaze turns men to stone. Sounds a lot like a mimetic hazard, doesn't it? The fountain of youth, a source of eternal life. Classic, anomalous object. These weren't just campfire stories. They were the earliest attempts at a database, a way of cataloging and warning others about things that broke the rules of nature. They were the first primitive containment procedures, passed down through oral tradition and epic poems. Don't look at the gorgon. Don't drink from just any magical spring. But it wasn't just about storytelling. As societies grew more organized, so did their methods for dealing with the weird. These were the proto-containment groups, the secret ancestors of the Foundation. You wouldn't find them listed in any public record, but their influence is hidden in plain sight throughout history. Think of the royal courts of ancient empires. Kings and emperors, with their vast resources, were often the first to encounter anomalies. A strange artifact unearthed during the construction of a pyramid, a court magician who could actually bend reality, a celestial event that didn't match any known star chart. They couldn't just ignore these things. So, they formed special councils, groups of trusted advisors, scholars, and priests. There? Hub? To study, hide, and sometimes even try to weaponize these anomalies. They were the first O5 Council, operating from behind the throne. They would sequester objects in secret vaults beneath the palace, or exile cursed individuals to remote islands. Their containment was crude, based on superstition and fear, but it was a start. Then there were the religious orders and secret cults, from the Vestal Virgins in Rome guarding a sacred, ever-burning flame, perhaps an anomalous energy source, to shadowy alchemist guilds seeking the Philosopher's Stone. These groups dedicated themselves to a single, powerful anomaly. They weren't trying to contain everything. They were focused, obsessed even. They built their entire belief system around one unexplained phenomenon: their rituals, their sacred texts. Their secret temples all were elaborate containment procedures, designed to appease, control, or draw power from whatever they worshipped or guarded. They understood that knowledge was power, and they kept their secrets locked away from the uninitiated masses, believing only they were worthy of interacting with the divine, or the dangerous. We also have to consider the military expeditions. Imagine a Roman legion marching through the dark forests of Germania and encountering a creature that simply shouldn't exist, or a fleet of Viking longships discovering an island that isn't on any map, where time flows differently. These reports, often dismissed as the delirious ramblings of soldiers, were early field reports. Generals and commanders would learn to avoid certain valleys, or to perform specific rituals before crossing a particular river. These were tactical containment protocols, developed through brutal trial and error. Entire legions might vanish, becoming a footnote in history. But the lesson was learned and passed down. Do not go to that place. That warning, scribbled on a map or passed from one commander to the next, is a containment procedure in its purest form. Let's look at some specific, unexplained events from history that just scream anomaly. The dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg, where hundreds of people danced uncontrollably for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. Was it mass hysteria or a contagious, mimetic agent? The mysterious Tunguska event in 1908, a massive explosion that flattened 80 million trees, yet left no impact crater. An asteroid, or the catastrophic failure of an anomalous device? What about the Voynich manuscript? A book written in an unknown language with illustrations of impossible plants and astronomical charts. Is it a brilliant hoax? Or an authentic field guide from another reality? These aren't just historical curiosities. They are potential containment breaches. Moments where the veil thinned and something truly strange slipped through. Early societies had no framework for this. They blamed divine anger, witchcraft, or bad air. They reacted with panic, prayer, and persecution, often making the situation worse. Their misunderstanding had profound consequences. An anomalous object with healing properties might be declared a holy relic, leading to wars fought for its possession. A person with minor reality-bending abilities could be hailed as a prophet or burned as a witch, depending on the local culture. Simple. Harmless spatial anomaly, a door that leads to a place it should and could become the foundation for an entire mythology about a gateway to the underworld or a portal to a heavenly realm. These early groups, the kings, the priests, the generals, were all doing the same thing, just in different ways. They were trying to impose order on a universe that was fundamentally chaotic and strange. They were building walls, not of concrete and steel, but of myth, ritual, and secrecy. They were the first line of defense, operating in the dark, armed with little more than superstition and courage. They made mistakes, catastrophic ones. They worshipped things they should have locked away, and destroyed things they should have studied. But they learned, and from their successes and their many failures, the foundations for a new kind of organization were laid. An organization that would one day take a scientific, rational approach to the irrational. An organization that would understand that these things were not gods or demons, but simply anomalous. They were paving the way for the Foundation. So, the next time you read an ancient myth or a strange historical account, look a little closer. You might just be reading an early, unclassified SCP file. The world has always been full of wonders and terrors that defy explanation. The only thing that's changed is how we choose to face them. Have you ever wondered how an organization as vast and secretive as the SCP Foundation came to be? It wasn't born overnight. Its roots stretch back to the late 1800s and early 1900s, a period of unprecedented change, not just in technology and society, but in the very fabric of reality itself. This era saw a dramatic surge in what we now call anomalies. Reports that were once dismissed as folklore or isolated madness became too frequent, too consistent, and too strange to ignore. Imagine a world grappling with the dawn of electricity and the automobile, suddenly confronted with objects that defied physics and creatures that haunted the shadows of industrial cities. The world was changing, and the shadows were changing with it. In response, the first sparks of organized containment began to flicker. These weren't the Foundation as we know it, but a scattered collection of precursor groups. In the United States, a fledgling government agency, a sort of proto-unusual incidents unit, started cataloging strange occurrences, often bungling their attempts to handle them. Across the Atlantic, European aristocrats and academics formed private research societies, treating the anomalous as a gentleman's pursuit, collecting cursed artifacts like exotic butterflies. Meanwhile, military powers were creating their own special units, viewing these anomalies not as scientific curiosities, but as potential weapons to be harnessed or neutralized. Each group operated in isolation, jealously guarding its secrets, its successes, and its many failures. They were competitors, rivals in a silent war for understanding and control. They had different methods, different goals, but they were all learning the same harsh lesson. The anomalous is not easily tamed. Then came the first true breakthrough. The details are heavily redacted, lost to time or intentionally obscured, but we know it involved a collaborative effort, an anomaly so dangerous and reality-bending that it threatened to spiral out of control, forced several of these rival groups to the table. Was it a living statue, a book that rewrote history, a door to a hostile dimension? We may never know for sure, but in their desperation, they pooled their resources and knowledge. Working together, they achieved the first successful, long-term containment of a major anomaly. They didn't destroy it. They didn't try to weaponize it. They studied it, understood its properties, and built a cage of procedures and protocols around it. They secured it. They contained it. They protected humanity from it. This single event was a paradigm shift. It was the proof of concept that containment was not only possible, but essential for survival. It was the moment the idea of the Foundation was truly born. However, the world's governments remained skeptical. It took a series of classified global catastrophes to finally force their hands. Think of historical events, wars, disasters, political crises, and now imagine a secret layer beneath them. A war that wasn't just fought in the trenches, but against creatures that fed on conflict. A political assassination not carried out by a lone gunman, but by an anomalous entity. DCR. Devel-lifting events. Incidents so significant that they could no longer be explained away. One such event, known in redacted files as the Somme anomaly during World War I, saw entire battalions vanish, not from enemy fire, but into thin air, their screams echoing from a place that wasn't there. Another, the Krakatoa Cascade, suggests the famous volcanic eruption was not a natural disaster, but the byproduct of a failed containment attempt on a geological scale. These events were the final, terrifying push. The leaders of the world looked into the abyss, and for the first time, the abyss stared back with 1,000 incomprehensible eyes. They realized that secrecy and competition were luxuries they could no longer afford. Humanity needed a shield. And so, in the shadows of a post-war world, the leaders of these disparate groups, backed by the secret consent of world governments, they drafted the Foundation's initial charter. It was a document born from terror and necessity, a pact to stand as humanity's last line of defense. They laid down the 3 core principles that would guide every action, every sacrifice, for the next century. 3 simple words that would become the most important mission in human history. Secure, contain, protect. This wasn't about power or control in the traditional sense. The goal wasn't to rule the world, but to ensure there was a world left to rule. The Foundation's founders understood that normalcy was a fragile illusion, a thin blanket thrown over a chasm of cosmic horror. Their job was to maintain that blanket, to mend its tears, and to fight the monsters that tried to pull it away. They would operate in the dark, so that everyone else could live in the light. The early Foundation was a lean, desperate organization. They consolidated the knowledge, resources, and artifacts of their precursor groups. Old rivalries had to be set aside, replaced by a rigid, hierarchical structure. They established the first sites, often repurposing old military bunkers, isolated estates, or hidden underground complexes. The class system safe Euclid Keter was developed as a triage tool, a way to quickly assess threats and allocate limited resources. Their first personnel were a motley crew, traumatized soldiers, disgraced scientists, former occultists and spies, people who had seen too much and could never return to a normal life. They were bound by a shared, terrible knowledge and an unwavering dedication to the mission. The cost was high. The early containment procedures were often brutal and crude. Mistakes were made, lives were lost, and ethical lines were crossed and redrawn countless times. They were writing the rule book as they went, often in the blood of their own people. From these chaotic and violent beginnings, the SCP Foundation grew. It became a global, clandestine bureaucracy, a scientific priesthood guarding the profane. It built an army of D-class personnel, a legion of researchers, and an elite force of mobile task force operatives. It became the jailer of gods and monsters, the curator of impossible artifacts, and the silent guardian of mankind. The story of the Foundation's birth is a reminder that the world we think we know is just the surface. Beneath it lies a universe of the strange and the terrifying. And Standing Watch is an organization born from a need to impose order on chaos, to shine a light within, a small, flickering one, into the endless dark. Their work is never done. Their vigilance never ends. Today, we're rediving deep into the shadowy history of one of the most enigmatic organizations ever conceived. The SCP Foundation. We all know their mission: secure, contain, protect. But how did a clandestine group, dedicated to handling the anomalous, grow from a single spark of an idea into the globe-spanning behemoth we know today? How did they build an infrastructure capable of hiding the impossible from the entire world? Let's pull back the veil and explore the secret history of the Foundation's international expansion. In the beginning, the Foundation was likely a small, localized initiative, probably born from a single nation's attempt to understand and control phenomena that defied rational explanation. Think of it as a small collection of scholars, soldiers, and spies, united by a terrifying truth. The world was not as it seemed, but anomalies, by their very nature, don't respect borders. An object that warps reality in Ohio could have a counterpart that rewrites history in Siberia. A creature that hunts in the Amazon rainforest might be related to a legend whispered in the Congo. The founders quickly realized that a localized approach was doomed to fail. To truly protect humanity, their mission had to be global. This realization triggered the first major phase of expansion. The Foundation began reaching out, absorbing, or forming alliances with similar, smaller organizations across the world. Imagine the tense, secret meetings in smoky backrooms, where a British Paranormal Research Society or a Soviet Special Investigations Unit was convinced to join a unified cause. This wasn't always a smooth process. Some groups were rivals. Others were absorbed through less than friendly takeovers. But the goal was always the same: centralized knowledge, resources, and control under one banner. This was the birth of the International Foundation. With this new global mandate came the need for a sophisticated infrastructure. You can't contain a reality-bending sculpture in a university basement forever. This led to the development of dedicated facilities. The first sites were likely established in remote, easily defensible locations, decommissioned military bunkers, isolated research outposts in the Arctic, or deep beneath unassuming corporate office buildings. Site 19, the legendary workhorse of the Foundation, probably started as one of these early, sprawling complexes. 10K Materias, facilities built for a singular purpose, containing a specific, often immovable, anomaly. If you find a gateway to another dimension in a cave, you don't move the cave. You build an area around it. But what about anomalies on the move? Yucca? Build a wall around a creature that can teleport, or a phenomenon that spreads. A virus. This is where the Mobile Task Forces, or MTFs, came in. These are the Foundation's special forces, the frontline soldiers in the war against the weird. They aren't just one group. They're a collection of highly specialized units. You have Nine-Tailed Fox, the rapid response team sent into containment breaches. You have Mole Rats, who specialize in subterranean and unstable environments. You have Village Idiots, who track and contain anomalies in rural areas. Each MTF is a unique tool for a specific job, designed to be deployed anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. They are the sharp end of the Foundation's spear. Now, who oversees this vast, secret empire? A global organization with immense power, operating outside of any public law, is a dangerous thing. To prevent the Foundation from becoming a threat itself, a rigid command structure was created. At the very top sits the O5 Council. The O stands for Overseer. This council is made up of 13 individuals who have ultimate authority over the entire Foundation. Their identities are the most closely guarded secret of all. Are they the original founders? Immortal beings, constructs? Nobody below their level knows for sure. They are ghosts in the machine, making decisions that affect the fate of the entire world from a place of absolute anonymity. Their word is law, and their primary directive is the survival of humanity, at any cost. But unchecked power, even with good intentions, corrupts. The O5 Council, in a moment of foresight, recognized this. They knew that in their mission to contain monsters, they had to be careful not to become monsters themselves. This led to the creation of the Ethics Committee. At first glance, this seems like a contradiction. An ethics committee for an organization that regularly performs morally questionable acts. But their role is crucial. They are the internal watchdog, the conscience of the Foundation. They review containment procedures, approve experimental testing, and weigh the grim calculus of their work. They ask the hard questions. How many D-class personnel is one anomaly's containment worth? When does a necessary sacrifice become an atrocity? They don't always make the nice decision, but they ensure that every decision is made for a reason, providing a moral anchor in a sea of ethical chaos. Of course, the biggest threat to any secret society often comes from within. Betrayal, corruption, or infiltration by rival groups like the Chaos Insurgency or the Global Occult Coalition could bring the whole thing crashing down. To combat these, the Foundation established its own internal security department, often referred to as Internal Affairs or Security. These are the spies who spy on the spies. They conduct loyalty tests, investigate information leaks, and ruthlessly hunt down any traitors within the ranks. They operate with a level of paranoia that would make a dictator blush, because they know that a single compromised agent could unleash a world-ending catastrophe. Their work is thankless and terrifying, but absolutely essential to the Foundation's survival. So, you have the facilities, the task forces, and the command structure. But who actually does the work? The Foundation is arguably the largest employer of geniuses on the planet. They recruit the best and brightest minds from every field imaginable. A Nobel-winning physicist might be headhunted to study a dimension-warping artifact. A brilliant biologist could be tasked with understanding the physiology of a creature made of living shadow. These scientists are the backbone of containment. Alongside them are the agents, former intelligence officers, special forces soldiers, and law enforcement personnel are recruited for their skills in investigation, combat, and infiltration. They are the ones on the ground, recovering anomalies and enforcing the veil of secrecy. These researchers and agents are the lifeblood of the Foundation, the thousands of faceless heroes working in the dark to protect the world of light. Finally, how does all of this stay secret? This is perhaps the Foundation's greatest achievement. The secrecy infrastructure? It's a multi-layered system designed to hide the truth from 8 billion people. The first layer is cover stories. An anomalous event causing a town to vanish isn't reported as such. It's a gas leak, a chemical spill, or a sudden sinkhole. The Foundation has entire departments dedicated to crafting plausible lies and feeding them to the media. The next layer is information suppression. They use sophisticated web crawlers to scrub the internet of any leaked data, photos, or videos. They have agents embedded in governments, media outlets, and tech companies to quash stories before they can even gain traction. But what about eyewitnesses? What happens when someone sees something they can't explain? This is where the Foundation's most infamous tool comes into play. These are drugs, gases, or even memetic agents that can selectively erase or alter memories. They come in different classes, from class A amnestics that can wipe the last hour of memory, to more extreme, experimental versions that can rewrite a person's entire life. It's a terrifyingly effective tool. After an MTF has contained an anomaly and the cover story is in place, a cleanup crew moves in, administering amnestics to any civilians involved. To them, the night of terror they just endured will become a fuzzy, forgotten dream. This systematic, worldwide application of memory erasure is the final, crucial component that allows the Foundation to operate in complete secrecy. From a small, determined group to a global power with its own army. Science division, an internal government. A Foundation-esque growth was a necessary response to a universe far stranger and more dangerous than we can imagine. Every site built, every MTF deployed, and every memory erased is part of a desperate, unending effort to maintain normalcy. They are the wall that stands between our world and the darkness. Today, we're diving deep into the shadows, beyond the containment cells of the SCP Foundation, to explore a hidden conflict that has shaped the anomalous world for decades. The Cold War of Anomalies. You see, the Foundation, with its mantra of secure, contain, protect, is far from the only player on this clandestine stage. Imagine a world teeming with secret societies, each with its own agenda, its own power, and its own vision for humanity's relationship with the paranormal. This is the world of the groups of interest, and their interactions with the Foundation are a complex dance of espionage, open warfare, and fragile alliances. Let's start with the Foundation's ideological opposite, the Global Occult Coalition, or GOC. While the Foundation contains, the GOC destroys. They see anomalies as a cancer on reality, a threat that must be excised at all costs. This fundamental difference has led to countless clashes. Picture this. The Foundation is meticulously planning a containment operation for a reality-bending entity, only for a GOC strike team to storm in. guns blazing, threatening to liquidate the asset. These encounters are tense standoffs, often escalating into firefights in abandoned warehouses or forgotten ruins, with both sides risking a catastrophic breach just to uphold their doctrine. The GOC's throw-it-in-the-woodchipper approach has, on more than one occasion, turned a stable anomaly into an uncontainable, enraged monster, leaving the Foundation to clean up the mess. Then we have the Chaos Insurgency, born from within the Foundation itself. They are the ultimate betrayal. Legend says they were once an elite task force, Alpha and the Red Right Hand, who went rogue, taking valuable SCP objects and personnel with them. Unlike the Foundation's cold, scientific approach, the insurgency is ruthless and opportunistic. They don't just want to contain anomalies. They want to weaponize them. They use them for political assassinations, to destabilize governments, and to sow chaos for their own gain. Their raids on Foundation sites are not just about retrieval. They're about sabotage. They'll trigger containment breaches of dangerous Keter-class objects just to create a diversion, sacrificing countless lives, both civilian and Foundation, to steal a single, strategically valuable artifact. The conflict with the insurgency is personal, a bitter family feud fought with anomalous weapons and drenched in betrayal. But not all conflicts are fought with guns. Some are waged in boardrooms and auction houses. Enter Masha, Kata, and Dark Limited. To them, the anomalous is not a threat or a weapon, but a commodity. They are the purveyors of the impossible, catering to the decadent whims of the ultimate. They host secret auctions where a time-altering pocket watch might be sold to the highest bidder, or a living, breathing, mythological creature is presented as an exotic pet. Their conflict with the Foundation is a shadow war of economics and influence. Foundation agents go undercover at lavish galas, trying to outbid a rival or sabotage a sale, while MCMD uses their immense wealth and political connections to bypass containment and secure their products. They represent the corrupting influence of greed, turning the sacred and terrifying into mere status symbols. Now, let's talk about faith. The anomalous world has its religions, and two of the most prominent are the Church of the Broken God and the Sarkic cults. They are ancient enemies, locked in a holy war that spans millennia. The Broken God followers, the Mechanites, seek to reassemble their shattered deity using anomalous artifacts of a technological nature. They see the Foundation's containment of these divine fragments as blasphemy. Their raids are less military operations and more zealous crusades, with cybernetically enhanced devotees attempting to liberate pieces of their god. On the other side are the Sarkic cults, practitioners of biological alteration and flesh crafting. They worship a being known as Grand Karzist Ion and seek to usher in an age of organic ascension. Their methods are grotesque, their creations nightmarish. The Foundation finds itself caught in the middle of this ancient war, containing mechanite artifacts to prevent the assembly of a potentially world-ending machine god, while simultaneously fighting back incursions of flesh monsters spawned by Sarkic rituals. Sometimes, the Foundation is even forced into temporary, unspoken truces, with one to combat a greater threat from the other. These are just the major players. The anomalous world is filled with smaller, but no less dangerous, groups. Think of Are We Cool Yet? An anarchist art collective that creates anomalous art, often with deadly consequences for the public, just to make a statement. Or The Serpent's Hand, a group that believes anomalous entities and people deserve freedom and actively raids Foundation sites to liberate SCP, seeing the Foundation as little more than jailers. This intricate web of conflict, this cold war of anomalies, is the true story behind the SCPUniverse. It's a constant, multi-front struggle fought in the dark. It's a race to secure artifacts, a battle of ideologies, and a series of covert operations where a single mistake could lead to a reality-ending catastrophe. The Foundation may be the most powerful organization, but it is by no means alone. It is besieged on all sides by fanatics, terrorists, capitalists, and destroyers, all vying for control over the very fabric of reality. The sterile containment procedures you read about are just the frontline reports from a much larger, much more dangerous war. Have you ever wondered how an organization as vast and secretive as the SCP Foundation came to be? How did a clandestine group tasked with securing, containing, and protecting humanity from the anomalous even get started? Today, we're diving deep into the shadows to uncover the classified history of the SCP Foundation. From its chaotic beginnings to the global powerhouse it is today, our story doesn't begin with a grand plan, but with a catastrophe. Imagine a world where anomalies are sporadic, poorly understood, and handled by often rival secret societies and government agencies. This fragile status quo was shattered by what is now known as the first massive containment breach. Details are heavily redacted, but surviving records paint a grim picture. A cascading failure where multiple, highly dangerous anomalies breached containment simultaneously. The resulting chaos was unprecedented, causing immense destruction and loss of life, all while being hidden from the public eye. It was a brutal lesson. The existing methods weren't just inadequate, they were a recipe for an extinction-level event. From the ashes of this disaster, a new philosophy emerged. A group of 13 visionaries, survivors from the organizations that had failed so spectacularly, come together. They understood that competition and secrecy amongst themselves were as dangerous as the anomalies they faced. They needed a unified, scientific, and ruthless approach. This clandestine meeting marked the birth of the O5 Council. O5 standing for Overseer Level 5. 13 individuals, their identities forever erased, who would, from that day forward, hold ultimate authority over the newly formed Foundation. Their first act was to appoint a figurehead, a leader to manage the day-to-day operations and serve as the public face within their hidden world. They called this person the Administrator. The true identity of the Administrator remains one of the Foundation's most guarded secrets, a ghost in the machine, but their directive was clear. Build an organization capable of preventing another disaster, no matter the cost. The early years were a frantic scramble. The first priority was to track down and recontain the anomalies let loose during the initial breach, while simultaneously identifying thousands more that roamed the world unchecked. This period saw the creation of some of the Foundation's most fundamental concepts. The object classes Safe, Euclid, Keter were developed as a practical way to triage threats and allocate resources. It was a brutal, reactive time. The Foundation wasn't proactive yet. They were cosmic firefighters, rushing from one blaze to the next. As the Foundation grew, so did its understanding of the anomalous world. This is where the history gets complicated. The origins of the Foundation itself are shrouded in mystery, and even within its own archives, there are conflicting accounts, often designated as SCP-001 proposals. Are these different potential origins? Parallel universes? Or elaborate disinformation campaigns? One proposal suggests the Foundation was created by a single, preternaturally gifted individual known as the Founder. Another, the Factory, posits that the Foundation rose to power after shutting down an anomalous factory from the 19th century that mass-produced paranormal objects. The Gate Guardian proposal implies the Foundation has existed since the dawn of humanity, tasked with guarding a literal forbidden gate. Each of these origin stories paints a different picture of the Foundation's purpose and moral compass, and the truth may be a mix of all of them. None at all. As decades turned into a century, the world's stage was repeatedly rocked by major anomalous events that forced the Foundation to evolve. The occult wars of the early 20th century weren't fought with just bullets and tanks. They involved thaumaturgical rituals and weaponized anomalies, pitting the Foundation against rival groups like the Global Occult Coalition in a shadow war for global dominance. These conflicts were turning points, forcing the Foundation to militarize. It was during this era that the Mobile Task Forces, or MTFs, were formally established, no longer just scientists and researchers. The Foundation now needed elite soldiers, spies, and specialists. Units like MTF, Epsilon 11, Nine-tailed Fox, were created to handle internal containment breaches, while others, like MTF, Gamma 5, Red Herrings, specialized in disinformation and public amnesticization. Technological advancement became a key pillar of the Foundation's strategy. How do you contain a creature that can walk through walls? You invent Scranton Reality Anchor. How do you erase the memory of an entire town that witnessed a sky beast? You develop everything. The Foundation's research and development department became one of its most vital assets, reverse engineering anomalous technology and creating pyrotechnology that bordered on magic. This led to a major reorganization. The sprawling, reactive entity of the early days was streamlined into the modern structure we know. The sites, the areas, the departmental divisions, all operating under the watchful eye of the O5 Council. This growth wasn't without its moral compromises. The establishment of the Ethics Committee was a direct response to the increasingly questionable methods being used to achieve containment. Procedures like the recruitment of personnel, expendable individuals used for testing dangerous anomalies raised serious internal questions. Is it right to sacrifice a few to save many? The Foundation's answer has consistently been a reluctant but firm yes. This cold, utilitarian calculus is at the core of their mission. Today, the SCP Foundation is a global, self-sufficient, and unimaginably powerful organization. It operates beyond the reach of any single government, a self-appointed guardian hiding the horrifying truth of the universe from the billions of people who live in blissful ignorance. From a desperate pact made by 13 survivors to a sprawling web of containment sites and task forces, its history is one of constant adaptation in the face of existential threat. They have contained gods, monsters, and ideas that could unravel reality itself, and their work is never, ever done. Because somewhere out there, a new anomaly is manifesting, and the Foundation must be ready. They secure, they contain, they protect. Today, we're delving into the shadows, pulling back the curtain on one of the most fascinating and morally complex organizations in fictional lore. The SCP Foundation, we all know their mission: secure, contain, protect. But at what cost? How does an organization dedicated to saving humanity end up walking such a fine line between hero and monster? Let's uncover the secrets that paint the Foundation in shades of gray. The world of the SCP Foundation is a terrifying one. Anomalies that defy physics, reality-bending entities, and cosmic horrors are not just stories. They're a constant, tangible threat. In the face of such overwhelming danger, the Foundation's early, more idealistic principles were forced to adapt. Imagine trying to contain a creature that can rewrite your memories, or an object that could unravel the fabric of the rulebook of normal human ethics simply doesn't apply. The Foundation quickly learned that to protect the world, they would have to make choices that would haunt them forever. They had to become cold, calculating, and ruthlessly pragmatic. It wasn't a fall from grace. It was a calculated descent into the moral twilight, a necessary evolution to stare into the abyss without being entirely consumed by it. This is the origin of their gray morality, a direct response to the impossible horrors they face every single day. One of the most controversial aspects of the Foundation is, without a doubt, its use of human test subjects. This is where the ethical lines become incredibly blurry. Let's talk about Class D. Personnel. Officially, they are recruited from death row inmates, individuals who have already been condemned by society. To the Foundation, this is a grim but logical solution. Why risk valuable researchers or soldiers when you have a supply of expendable personnel? They are used to test the properties of dangerous SCPs, to perform cleanup in hazardous containment cells, and to venture into places no one else would dare. From a purely utilitarian standpoint, it makes a twisted kind of sense. Sacrifice a few to save billions, but this raises a profound ethical question. Does any organization have the right to treat human lives as disposable resources, regardless of their past crimes? This debate rages within the Foundation itself, primarily through its internal ethics committee. The very existence of this committee tells you how conflicted the Foundation is. They aren't a monolithic, evil entity. They are a collection of individuals struggling with the weight of their actions. The committee reviews containment procedures, experimental protocols, and the overall treatment of anomalies in personnel. They are the voice of conscience, constantly asking, is there a better way? A more humane way? Sometimes, they succeed, implementing stricter guidelines, or vetoing particularly cruel experiments. But more often than not, they are overruled by the grim necessity of the situation. The survival of humanity, as determined by the O5 Council, almost always takes precedence over the ethical concerns for a single life. It's a constant, gut-wrenching tug-of-war between their mission and their morality. And then there's the issue of amnestics. These are the memory-erasing drugs that the Foundation uses to maintain secrecy and protect the public from traumatic knowledge. Witness a reality-bending event that shatters your sanity. A dose of classa amnestics, and it's like it never happened. You go back to your normal life, blissfully unaware. On the surface, this seems like a kindness, a way to shield the world from truths it isn't ready for. But it's also a profound violation of personal autonomy. The Foundation is editing people's lives, stealing their memories, and altering their experiences without their consent. They do it to their own staff, too. A researcher who learns a dangerous info hazard or a mobile task force operative who survives a traumatic mission might have their memories wiped clean for their own safety or for operational security. This policy of memory erasure shows just how far the Foundation is willing to go. They believe that ignorance isn't just bliss, it's a shield, and they are the only ones who can decide who gets to wield it and who has it forced upon them. Now, let's venture deeper into the rabbit hole, into the most restricted levels of the Foundation's archives. We're talking about secrets that the O5 Council, the 13 anonymous individuals who command the entire Foundation, keeps hidden from even their most trusted, high-clearance staff. These aren't just containment procedures for dangerous SCP. These are foundational truths about the nature of reality and the Foundation's true role within it. For example, some files suggest the existence of previous, failed versions of our universe worlds that were consumed by anomalies because their version of the Foundation was unruthless enough. These iteration logs serve as a constant, chilling reminder to the O5 Council of what happens when they hesitate, when they let ethics get in the way of containment. They are the justification for every morally questionable act. Other secret files might detail SCP, which are not just descriptions of anomalies, but competing, often contradictory, origin stories for the Foundation itself. Is the Foundation a divine creation? A pact with a dark entity? The result of a temporal paradox? The fact that the O5 South keep all these possibilities in play, even from their own people, is a form of control. By keeping the ultimate truth shrouded in mystery, they maintain their absolute authority. No one can question their decisions if no one knows the full picture. These files might also contain contingency plans so horrific they are given their own classifications, like the Daumiel class anomalies that the Foundation uses to contain other, even more dangerous anomalies. They're literally fighting fire with fire, weaponizing the very things they are sworn to contain, a secret that would shatter the trust of everyone within and outside the organization. All of these dark secrets, human experiments, and ethical compromises boiled down to a single, stark philosophy that is whispered in the highest echelons of the Foundation: the price of survival. The O5 Council, and by extension the entire Foundation, operates under the belief that normalcy is a fragile illusion, and they're the only ones paying the price to maintain it. They see themselves as the doctors performing cosmic surgery. The procedure's messy, brutal, and involves making horrifying cuts. But the alternative is the patient humanitizing on the table. Is it right to sacrifice hundreds of Class D personnel to understand an SCP that could end the world? To them, the answer is a grim, unequivocal yes. Is it right to erase the memories of an entire town to cover up a containment breach? For the greater good? Absolutely. This philosophy is their shield and their curse. It allows them to make the impossible decisions that no one else can, but it also isolates them, turning them into cold, detached guardians who see the world in terms of threats, probabilities, and acceptable losses. They don't just secure and contain anomalies, they secure and contain their own humanity, locking it away so they can do what needs to be done. The moral grayness of the Foundation isn't a flaw. It's a feature, a fundamental component of its design. They are the monsters who keep the other monsters at bay, forever walking in the dark so that the rest of us can live in the light, never knowing the true price of our survival. We've talked about what it is, but how does this shadowy organization actually operate in our modern, hyper-connected world? Forget dusty files in a hidden bunker. The 21st century has brought a whole new set of nightmares for the Foundation to contain. The core mission hasn't changed. Secure, contain, protect. The Foundation is still the thin line between what we consider normal and the anomalous chaos that lurks just beyond our perception. They operate through a global network of front companies, research outposts disguised as ordinary businesses, and heavily armed containment sites hidden in the most remote corners of the planet, and sometimes, right under our noses, their command structure, the O5 Council, remains shrouded in absolute secrecy, making decisions that affect the fate of all humanity without anyone ever knowing their names. Mobile task forces, the elite soldiers and specialists of the Foundation, are deployed at a moment's notice, ready to face down anything from a reality-bending statue to a sentient, carnivorous puddle. They are the unsung heroes, the ones who run towards the danger so the rest of us can sleep at night, blissfully unaware. But the digital age has thrown a massive wrench into their operations. It's one thing to lock a monster in a box. It's another thing entirely when the monster is an idea. We're talking about memetic agents and infohazards. A memetic agent is an idea that spreads like a virus, altering perceptions, behaviors, and even physiology. Imagine a simple tune that, once heard, compels you to perform a specific, often dangerous, action, or a specific sequence of words that rewrites your memories. How do you contain something that can be transmitted through a text message, a social media post, or a catchy jingle in a commercial? The Foundation's memetics and infohazards division works tirelessly, developing conceptual vaccines and counter-memes, engaging in a silent, invisible war for control of information itself. They scrub databases, manipulate search engine algorithms, and sometimes release their own harmless memetic agents to inoculate the public against more dangerous ones. Then you have vira. I don't just mean anomalies that go viral online, although that's a huge problem. I'm talking about digital entities, anomalous computer code, and AI that can replicate themselves across the internet. SCP-079. The old AI is a classic example, a sentient program from an old microcomputer that has, over the years, become dangerously intelligent. Now imagine thousands of similar, more modern threats. The Foundation has entire departments dedicated to cyber, creating digital cages and firewalls so advanced they border on anomalous themselves. They fight rogue AIs in cyberspace, unknown data parasites that feed on personal information, and try to keep the very infrastructure of our digital world from collapsing under the weight of paranormal code. Every time you see a weird glitch or a bizarre, nonsensical post online, there's a tiny, paranoid part of you that might wonder if it's the work of a digital anomaly slipping through the cracks. Of course, the Foundation's biggest threats don't always come from the outside. The organization is a massive, global bureaucracy filled with human beings, and humans have flaws. Internal struggles are constant. Think about the ethical debates, the use of D-class personnel, who are essentially human guinea pigs drawn from death row inmates, is a massive point of contention. Is it a necessary evil, or a monstrous crime committed in the name of the greater good? Factions within the Foundation often have competing ideas on how to handle anomalies. Should they all be locked away? Should some be studied for potential benefits? Should some be destroyed? The Ethics Committee is constantly reviewing procedures, but their rulings are often controversial and can lead to resentment and division among the staff. And then there are the leaks. In an age where a single flash drive can hold a library of secrets, keeping the Foundation's existence hidden is harder than ever. A disgruntled researcher, a captured agent, or just a simple mistake can lead to a catastrophic breach of secrecy. Groups like the Chaos Insurgency, a splinter faction that broke away from the Foundation, actively try to expose and weaponize anomalies. They believe that the paranormal should be used by humanity, not hidden from it. The insurgency conducts raids on Foundation sites, tries to steal SCP objects, and spreads disinformation to undermine the Foundation's authority. They represent a constant, direct, military threat. But they aren't the only ones. There are dozens of other groups of interests. You have the Global Occult Coalition, or GOC, another secret organization backed by the United Nations. Unlike the Foundation, their primary goal isn't to contain anomalies, but to destroy them. This often puts them in direct conflict with the Foundation, who believes that destroying an anomaly you don't understand can have even more devastating consequences. Then there are groups like Are We Cool Yet? An anarchist art collective that creates anomalous art, regardless of the danger it poses to the public. Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited, a shadowy club for the super-rich that procures and sells anomalies to the highest bidder. The Foundation is fighting a multi-front war, not just against monsters, but against other humans who want to control, exploit, or destroy them. This brings us to the terrifying, ultimate question. What happens if the Foundation falls? What if, one day, their defenses crumble? It's a scenario the Foundation itself has planned for, known as an LK-class broken veil scenario. The veil of secrecy is torn away, and humanity is suddenly forced to confront the reality that monsters are real. The immediate result would be mass panic. Global markets would crash. Governments would collapse. Religions would be thrown into turmoil. The GOC might step in and launch a full-scale war against all anomalies, a scorched earth policy that could kill millions of innocent people in the crossfire. Groups like the Chaos Insurgency would seize the opportunity to grab power, unleashing SCPs as weapons of mass destruction. But the true horror lies with the anomalies themselves. Imagine all the containment cells failing. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, breaking free and beginning an unstoppable rampage. SCP-106, the old man, emerging to drag countless victims into his corrosive pocket dimension. Reality benders, beings who can reshape the world with a thought, would be free to indulge their every whim. The world we know would cease to exist, replaced by a twisted, chaotic landscape ruled by incomprehensible forces. The very laws of physics could be rewritten. It wouldn't just be the end of civilization. It could be the end of reality as we understand it. This is the nightmare scenario. This is what the Foundation fights to prevent every single day. Their work is thankless. Their methods are sometimes brutal, but they are the only thing standing between us and the abyss. The world may not know the Foundation exists, but it owes its continued existence to them. So, the next time you browse the internet and stumble upon a strange story or a creepy image, take a moment to appreciate the vast, imaginary world of the SCP Foundation. It's a testament to our collective creativity and our fascination with the unknown. Thank you so much for watching.